Change the way I eat, change the way I felt so I could change the way I speak. I stopped listening to music that was changing how I think. Then I put the liquor down, it's time to change the way I drink. Please don't take it personal, I'm taking care of me. Stressing about my future, it was messing up my sleep. Accepted all my losses, gave myself the space to breathe. Finally changed the things I wanted, now I know just what I need. You ain't living if you don't grow. Don't be afraid of what you don't know. That I won't go. You say I'm different, but I hope so. I love who I'm becoming. Worked way too hard to get here. You can never tell me nothing. I'm becoming everything I wanna be and everything I love. Who I'm becoming. You can't tell me nothing about this person I'm becoming. Changed up on my old friends, they was changing up on me. You gon' lose some day ones where you trying to succeed. The price of evolution, consider that defeat. Life is full of lessons, don't take losses as defeat. So let go of the past, the goal is to be free. The goal is to be everything you're meant to be. Everything you're meant to be. You ain't living if you don't grow. Don't be afraid of what you don't know. Distance that I won't go. You say I'm different, but I hope so. I love who I'm becoming.
Hello and welcome to tonight's podcast for Another Woman's Story. My name is Cheryl Patton Dandridge. I am the founder of Another Woman's Story, and our platform is designed to support women who have or are still going through the effects of domestic violence. And just to get a little bit of background about our organization, we do quite a few things in the community. We have podcast, obviously, which is where you are tonight. We also have community service events. We host a women's summit every year. So those of you who are connected and in the Atlanta area, or even choose to travel in October, look for our Women's Summit, our annual Women's Summit. This will be year 3 and will be in Atlanta, Georgia in October, the 3rd Saturday of October. So those of you who are brand new to watching us or connecting with us, please feel free to reach out to us by email or on any of our social media platforms. They're all listed as at Another Woman's Story. So tonight's podcast, we have a special guest. So first of all, I wanted to welcome all of you to 2026. It's been a year for me. 2025 was a year for me, and we're looking for different things and better things in 2026. So you'll notice that we'll have a different line of activities. We'll have a different feel, if you will, on our social media pages. So just look forward to staying connected with us. But tonight, I have a very good friend of mine here. She's going to be our guest tonight, and she's going to share some things, not only in her background, but also things that will help assist those of you who are interested in getting more educated about the effects of domestic violence. Her name is Dr. Tanya Ratcliff, and she has a lot to share. And so without further ado, we're going to have a conversation. Tanya, come on in. Can you hear me?
Sure. Hi, everybody.
Hey. Hi. Welcome to 2026.
Thank you. Same to you.
It's been an interesting journey this year, but I'm excited to start over. I'm excited for new beginnings and new things. So welcome to the show tonight. Tanya and I have known each other, maybe 30 plus years, I know for sure. 30 plus years. And so she moved away and now she's doing her own thing. And so she's in the state of Illinois now. I'm sure it's pretty cold there. But if you could just tell us a little bit about your background and then we'll go ahead and get into the conversation.
Okay, well, thank you. And thank you for having me. Hello to everybody. I'm excited about being here. And a little bit about me. I am originally from Chicago. I just moved back here about 13 or 14 years ago after being gone for around 28 years. So my background is kind of all over the place, but I'm going to try to sum this up a little bit. I moved out to California. Actually, I made that move off of a childhood dream. And when I moved out there, that's when I met Cheryl at our church. But one of the things I shared with Cheryl recently is that the reason I moved out there at the time that I did is because the relationship that I was in, I had a stalker. And that's probably just part of the story of dealing with that. But I moved out there and I lived out there for 10 or 11 years and then moved to Atlanta and went back to school, did some things, loved the Atlanta area, then moved from there to Jackson, Mississippi to continue my education, and then to Providence, Rhode Island, also to continue my education. So I moved back to Chicago because this is my home and this is where I always wanted to eventually end up. I wanted to go around and see the world. I wanted to have friends in different places. That has been accomplished. So I came back because I really wanted to do something for in the healing field. So I chose to go into psychology, and I really wanted to do that to help specifically Black people because that has been my calling, is to work with African Americans. I always wanted to build some kind of bridge between their psychological thinking and their physical condition. And so now I'm just trying to make all of that happen. So, my story in terms of while we're here with dealing with violence, it occurred many years ago. When I was in my early 20s.
So I have a question for you. So the stalker, I'm going to go right into the story.
Mm-hmm.
The stalker that you had was actually in Chicago, and then that's why you moved to Atlanta?
No, he was in
Chicago.
Me a little, and that's why I moved to California.
I mean, that's what I meant to say.
Yes.
So you moved to California because of the stalker. So tell me about that relationship. Was this childhood relationship? Was it college?
It was college, but I felt like it was childhood. He was really my first boyfriend, and I met him when I went away to college. It was my first year, his third year. So, we started dating and everything. And at first, as usual, things were fine. Everything tend to be okay. There were issues there, but nothing that you would ever really think was going to blow up to be a big issue. But as time went on, and I would say probably about a year later is when a lot of the nonsense started. That's when, he started trying to control me, tell me who my friends could be. You can hang out with this person and this person, but I don't want you to hang out with that person. He started telling me that he was my everything, my mother, my father, my brother, my sister, my grandmother, my grandfather, anybody that could be in my life, he would take that role. That's what he said. He said a lot of things. And at the time, me being the age that I was, I listened to him, but I didn't hear him. I was like,
so when you said that, so I'm going to interject just because I've got to ask you, when you say something, when you said there were some issues at the beginning, but they were just, when you say that, what do you mean? Were there
Okay, well,
arguments? You got,
no, it really wasn't any arguments at in the beginning. No,
so
it
what
was
issues did you see?
the issues that I'm talking about was when I first started seeing him, I didn't know he had another girlfriend. So I didn't think that was a big deal because we had a few little, we had discussions about that. And then he finally came and told me one day that he let her go. And he said, but since I did, he expected me to step up. So I didn't know what step up meant. And I wasn't trying to deal with step up because I was I think I was 19 when he first told me that. I was like, I don't know what step up is and wasn't worrying about it because that's where I placed it at that time.
Okay.
So,
So when you found out he had another girlfriend, it was because he told you or you found out?
oh no, you know how everybody on campus was running up telling her, oh,
Oh,
he's got a girl, he got a new girlfriend. So I didn't know anything until some friends came and told me, well, he had her over the summertime, and now you have come down here, and she's not liking that, and she and her friends just ugly stuff. They came over to the dorm room with intentions on fighting me and everything. And me being me, I wasn't going to sit in the dorm room, so I met them at the front door of the dorm because I was like, no, y'all gonna take me down. We gonna battle. One of you all
oh
with
oh
me.
my
I'm not
God.
going down by myself. And so when I did that, they dispersed. It's like, no, I don't want to have nothing to do with that. Some of them I actually knew. So they were like, I don't want to do that, whatever. So they dispersed. And eventually he and her, didn't work out. So I guess that's when he decided to take all of that attention. I don't know what happened in their relationship. But when he said he let her go, so now I am supposed to step up. I guess later I figured out that I was supposed to be his everything,
Oh,
right?
so
Right.
so he started stalking because you left? Why did he start? When did
Mm-mm.
the stalking start?
So there were a whole lot of things going on with us. I mean, he was showing a lot of very he showed a lot of psychopathology in terms of how he was reacting to things. He was very jealous, very controlling. He got one incident. I'm at home. I never lived with him. He always lived somewhere else, and I lived with my parents at this time after I left school after 1 year. So the stalking came after I decided to go to Chicago State University. And I was going there. I worked every day from 8:30 in the morning to 4:30 in the evening. And my classes were Monday through Friday from 6:30 to 9:30. So he started coming up to the school looking for me. And there were times where I was sitting in the classroom and people would start, get her, get her, get her. And if somebody would do this and say, look, I look at the door and the little glass on the door, he's standing out there, hey, baby, what's going on? And I'm like, what in the world? And so because I knew how he acted, I'm like, oh man, if I don't play this right, he's going to embarrass me in front of everybody because he was
And so
very,
would that mean that he would have come in there and been nice, or come in there and
he would
been mean?
not he would not necessarily have come in the room. He would have waited until everybody came out, and then he would have started doing whatever he felt was going to embarrass me. He may have started yelling, or he may have started being overly affectionate, grabbing
Oh,
on me,
okay.
hugging me and kissing me. And this my baby, y'all. This, that type of thing. This my baby. Anything that would embarrass me. At one point, I took him to some friends. My parents had some friends, and we went to their house. He locked himself in the bathroom because he didn't want to come out. So I got to sit there over it for hours to try to get him to come out of the bathroom. Um, you know, he was fighting with my brothers. Just trying to, one of my good friends, they just hated each other, and every time he saw her, they got into it. So it was a lot of other things as well. He hit me one time. Most of the abuse that I suffered within this relationship was psychological and sexual assaults. Because
Wow.
he hit me one time, and I picked up a monkey wrench, and I went at him, and I drew blood because I was mad. I took it and I was going at him, and I burst. Well, I cut his hand like this because he held his hand up. And he started screaming, saying, "Stop, stop. I only hit you one time and you act like," and I'm like, "Did you hear what you said? You only hit me." I said, "You don't put your hands on me."
Where was the protection? Was there anybody, like, if the police came, um, when did
Mm-mm,
the police show up? And then, so if
mm-mm,
so, did they try to help at all?
mm-mm, mm-mm. First of all, we're talking about 1982. So no stalking laws at that point. Very little domestic violence laws. Matter of fact, at that time, a man could beat his wife in public, and as long as it was his wife, the police wouldn't interfere. They may try to stop him from killing her, but there was not much protection when you start talking about that. Those laws started coming out in the late 80s and the early 90s. So I tell, other women a lot of times that now you can get some help. Back then, you couldn't get any help. Matter of fact, around 1980, they had about 2,000 domestic violence shelters. I'm sorry, 2,000 shelters for animal abuse. They had 4 for domestic violence.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So I didn't even think about it as being domestic violence or intimate
Right.
partner violence. See, the language has changed as well. I thought of this as being, I got a crazy nut here. Matter of
And
fact,
you know what's really interesting about that, and I talk about this a lot, is that growing up in that period of time, right? As an athlete, you know how to banter, you know how to go back and forth. You fought with the boys, so this for a long time did not seem like abuse
mm-hmm,
because you did it all the time growing up as a
mm-hmm,
kid.
mm-hmm.
So the fact that he hit you, you hit him back. It didn't sound like abuse because you
Right.
did that all the time. So there was really
Exactly.
no terminology for it.
Exactly. And
That's
I had 3 brothers.
right.
Okay.
So
And
you can identify with the
we
yeah,
were
yeah.
always battling, and we would
Right.
physically battle. But I just knew that it was something wrong. I said, no, he can't think he can put his hands on me. That just turned me so off. I was just like, and
But were you afraid? But you were never afraid of him.
no, and that does not mean that I should not have been. I
No, no,
was
no.
not.
I'm just wondering if you were afraid of him because this type of interaction physically was normal, or
Yeah,
what we was our normal, I should say,
right.
right?
Yeah. So no, I didn't feel afraid of him. I just started. That's when that whole thing. I started disliking him.
Okay.
I didn't like him anymore, and I was beginning to. That decline was coming. And no matter what we did in terms of, like, after that fight, I was like, okay, I'm not gonna hear from him anymore. Because he always said, "You need to be happy. You got somebody like me. You need to be happy. I'm this and I'm that, and you should be glad that somebody like me likes somebody like you." And I would laugh inside, because I'm like, "Oh, he got the wrong person." Because I ain't never been the one that was shying away from, my good points. I was like, I had let me say this real quick. We talk a lot about narcissism when we talk about perpetrators of domestic
Yes.
violence. Narcissism, some traits of narcissism we all need to have, because it really helps you to fight against these types of things, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying you have to think that you are the best of everything, but you have to think highly of yourself. And that's
Right.
what one of the things that helped me is
Somebody wanted to know, when you moved to California, did he try to follow you there?
he didn't follow me, but that's when the big stalking started. Oh my
And
goodness.
stalking was what? Phone calls? When you say
Phone
stalking,
calls. He started calling me. I did not give him my number. Every time I got my number changed, he found a way to get my phone number. Um, and this was again in the day when you pick the phone up, you don't know who's on the other end of the line until you pick the phone up, right? So don't say, "Oh, you could have blocked them," and we didn't have all of that.
so who
Um,
gave him the number? Do you know?
Yeah, I know a couple of people. He actually told me one person who gave it to him for $10, and I believed him because I
Oh,
said,
wow.
"Yeah, that sounds like something that person would do." Another friend, he didn't know I was coming back to Chicago and for a visit, and he waited outside her job, and she didn't know because I didn't tell her anything. She just knew that. That I left to go to California, and he waited outside her job, and it was raining one day, and he said he just pulled up and like, "Oh, I can give you a ride home." And on the ride home they started talking, and she said, "Oh yeah, I think she's supposed to be coming back this weekend or whatever." So that was one time he just showed up on my front porch and was like, "Hey baby, I knew you was coming home," all of that stuff. And again, in California, it was this happened for years. This was not once or twice while I was gone. I left here in 1983, and I think he stopped trying to catch up with me. And I was actually working at Friendship Baptist Church at this time, 89. So it was a span of about 6 years, and it was phone calls. I get another, I would get another number. He hired a private detective, and that private detective was able to look at my public records like my driver's license to get my address and my phone number and stuff like that.
So
So
what did he want when he called? What was he saying? Come back home. I'm going to come get you. What was the
It was
conversations?
always, "Hey baby, I miss you. When you
Oh,
coming
okay.
back?" Acting like nothing is wrong. "When are you coming back?" And da 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 da. And he'll start talking, and I'll just be like, "Look, how did you get my number again?" That never faced him, right? That never faced him. So you know, in a way, I kind of started laughing about it because I was like, this is a true nut. Now, today, I wouldn't frame that in terms of laughter and calling him a
Oh,
nut.
absolutely not.
No.
Absolutely not. There's a whole lot more that you've learned from
Right.
then to now.
Right. So I would tell, he would call and he would say this and that and the other. Most of it was him trying to get me back home. He would say things like, "I learned my lesson. I learned my lesson." And I would always tell him, I wasn't trying to teach you a lesson. I'm gone. I
Right.
left. This has been, it's been a long time. And one time he called and he said, have you talked to your brother? I said, "Which brother?" And he told me which brother, and I said, "No, why?" Well, he had gone over to my house, to my parents' house, and my parents weren't home. My brother was there. My 15-year-old brother was there. He was 26 at this time, and he got into a physical fight with my 15-year-old brother. And
Because he wouldn't. Why?
he ran off and came back with the police and told the police that my brother in the house that my parents lived in, that it was a drug house. and that, you
Mm.
know, like I'm trying to see my girlfriend. My girlfriend is his sister, and he won't let me see my girlfriend, and da 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 da. So the cops was like, we need to go in the house. So they rang the doorbell. My grandmother came to the door, and um, she was like, "What do you need?" And they said they told him what was going on. She said, "Come on in the house." And she said they didn't go past the living room, and they looked around and said, this is not a drug house." You know,
Right.
so they left. And when they went, came down off the porch, he's still standing there. My brother was there, and the police told my brother, "Go in the house, tell your sister to get out here right now." And my brother said, "I can't do that." And he said, "Why not?" Because because my sister lives in California. So they looked at
Here comes
him.
the information.
You see, my brother said they popped him over his head and said, "Get your butt in the car." And they drove off with him in the car. So he also had always told me, if anything ever happens to you, if you ever leave me, I'm going to go crazy. And he did. So I don't know where he is today. I don't even think he's still living. However, um, I started hearing about his behavior. He was sneaking into people's houses or breaking into their houses. These were people he knew. When they would go to work or they would sleep at night, he would break in, and several people found him sitting at their dining room and kitchen tables eating. He had went in the refrigerator and got food out and started eating. They
Oh
caught
my gosh.
Yes, they caught him sneaking in to use the bathroom, to take showers. He moved, I mean, his brother let him spend the night one night, and it took them 4 days to get him out of the bathroom. So I
So you
started,
didn't see any. I'm trying to figure out. Was he on drugs? You never saw any of this. I don't understand it. It just start. Have you talked to his people, like his family?
I know.
None of
Well,
this
I
stuff
mean,
showed up while you were dating.
of course, things started to become clear to me the more and more I got to know his family. You
Okay.
know, right?
Apple
So
didn't fall far from the tree.
yeah, and I started seeing some things, and in my limited understanding of psychology or mental health, I knew something was wrong, but I couldn't put my thumb on it at the time. And I was like, wow, what this is kind of um, different. But he would always project that out on me, and say your family is this and your family is that, and on and on and on. And I'm like, no, I think that's your family that has the history of mental health. Some of them had been institutionalized, even if it was just for a short amount of time. So
So what made him stop um, contacting you when you were in California? Do you know what made
I
it
don't know
stop?
exactly. I know he got really upset after his mother died, and I didn't send any flowers. And this was 88 or 89, and he called me and he said, "Why, um why couldn't you send some flowers or whatever?" And I'm thinking, dude, mm-mm. He didn't understand what "you cut off" means. And his mom had came out to California actually to visit me. And I later found out she just needed a trip because she had been diagnosed with breast cancer. So she passed away maybe about 13 or 14 months after she came to visit me. And when she did come to visit me,
Mm.
she asked me once about him, and she said, "You think any chance that you all get?" I said, "Don't even talk about that." Because
I talked to a lot of women who have had significant others where the man was, exhibiting these kind of behaviors. And so often the family members will ask, do you think there's an opportunity for you guys to get back together? Or you were really good for my brother or my, uncle or whoever. And it's like, I think you're just trying to get us to take him off your hands
Yeah,
because how
yeah,
could you watch this behavior and think it's okay to give to someone else as a gift? That's
yes.
not a gift.
Yes, they were talking about, oh, you guys have babies, you could have a pretty little girl. I was like, no. I was with him for maybe about 6 or 7 months, even though I was broken up with him. And I know that might sound kind of crazy, but
No, it sounds normal because that
yes,
happens all the
everything about me was gone, right?
Yeah.
But because he was showing up at my house unannounced, he was showing up at other places unannounced and uninvited. I decided I'm gonna have to stick with this guy until I actually can get my physical body out of here.
That's what you
And
did before you moved to California.
no, that's when I moved. So what happened is he borrowed my grandmother's electric typewriter, and back in 1982, 83, an electric typewriter was like a Mac
Hot commodity.
right? And so my grandmother told me, you better get my typewriter back before you leave here. So he knew I was leaving, but I lied to him about that. I told him the day I was leaving, but I told him about a different time that I was going to leave. So I kept asking for the typewriter. He wouldn't give it to me. I drove over there and I told his mom what I wanted. She and I and his brothers looked for it. We couldn't find it, and he was not there. And I just waited and waited and waited. I waited about 4 hours for him to come home. And he came home about 5 o'clock. Then the argument started, and he came at me, and his mother jumped up and put her body in between mine and his, and she yelled at him and said, no, you better not hit her. And she's the one who stepped in and finally got my typewriter. So I get the typewriter, I go put it in my car. She was holding the front door to keep him from coming outside, because had he had done that, come outside, he would have definitely physically fought me at that time, because he knew I was on my way to the airport. But what he didn't know is that this would happen around 5:20, and he thought I was going to miss the plane, because I told him my plane was leaving at 7 o'clock. Okay, but it wasn't leaving until 8:30. So I put my typewriter in the car, and I started to drive off, and the speed bumps, right? And he was about 23 years old, in good condition. So he's running, and he's yelling at me. And then the little kids on the block was like, lady, go, go, go. He got rocks. He gonna start throwing rocks. And I started hearing the rocks all on my car. So I'm getting ticked, because I'm like, he's messing up my car, but I'm still going. And he's screaming, go ahead, find yourself. You a loser anyway. You ain't nothing but a loser. I deserve better than you. And all of that kind of stuff. And all while I was driving, I was like, okay, not feeling a thing. Got home, my bags were already in the trunk of the car. I told one of my brothers, come on, take me to the airport. We got to the airport at about, the flight left at 8:30, and I got there about 7:40. So, and of course, it wasn't all of the stuff you got to go through now. So yeah, I still had to kind of run to get to the gate. When I got to the gate, they were loading up. I was the last one getting on the plane, which was fine for me. So I get on there and I'm sitting down. Soon as I
he's on that plane,
soon as I sit down and I turn around to look back, I was like, okay, nobody's there, and I'm the last one. Then I hear the flight attendants, is somebody coming down the thing, make sure that they get on, coming down the ramp. And so now I'm like, oh my God, what's going on? I turn around, Cheryl, I look again, and some man got on there, but it wasn't him. So now I'm just really full of anxiety. The plane starts to take off and I'm still turning my head. It takes off, I'm still turning my head. I did not relax until that plane started to
I
let
told.
off, right? And then I looked behind me and he wasn't there. And that's the first time ever in 2.5 years that my body responded to all of the stress sitting right there on the plane. So it just went limp. It just dropped, and I took a breath, and you're talking about breathing again. I get to California, my friend is like, when she saw me, she said, "What the heck did he do to you?" Because she wasn't accustomed to seeing me like that, right? And so she was really good about. She said, "This is not you." We went through my suitcase and everything, and she said, she started pulling my clothes out, and she said, "I knew they were in here somewhere. Here we go. This is Tanya right here." So she started laying all my clothes out. She said, "We going out tomorrow night. What you gonna wear?" And it just took just that for me to, jump
Not
back into
back to.
myself, right? But again, see, she was connected to all of this too because her boyfriend was his brother.
Oh.
But yeah. But that's a whole nother issue.
But
But
the brother. So let's talk about his brother. Was he the same?
mm-mm, no,
So they were different.
his brother was very mild mannered, um, very very mild mannered. Matter of fact, he and his brother fought a lot because he accused his brother of being gay, which wasn't necessarily an accusation. So we found out about that a couple of years later. But they didn't. It was two younger brothers he had, and neither one of them acted the way he did. His mom even always talked about that. You give him an inch, he wants to take a mile. Other people didn't like him. He showed up at my brother's wedding with a big black eye, this big. I mean, huge. We go see Earth, Wind, and Fire. And I had my car, and he said, "Well, let me drive because I know where this place is and I can get us there quicker." And I said, "Okay, but we have to get some gas." And he said, "No, no, no. We don't need no gas." I said, "No, we're going 40 minutes away. We need gas." He refused to get gas. As soon as we got to the venue and turned into the parking space, the car went click, click, and went out. So we go in, I did not enjoy, and I love Earth, Wind, and Fire, but of course I did not enjoy the concert because I'm like, how are we going to get home? So
Right.
after the concert, we run into a mutual friend, one that he grew up with and who went to high school with me. So he comes and tells me, "So and so is here. There he is right there." So I'll go up to him and I'm like, "Hey," and he's happy to see me and everything. Then he sees this guy, right? And he had nothing to say to him. And I told him what happened. I said, "Is there any way you can take us to the gas station to get some gas?" He said, "No." And I said, "No, I'm serious." He said, "I'm serious."
He said
And
he's
I,
not taking you.
yes, he said, "I'm not taking you." I said, "We are 40 minutes from Chicago." He said, "I am not taking you anywhere with
Why? Because
him."
he didn't like the boyfriend?
Yeah, with him. And I said, "Oh God," I was thinking, what the hell has he done to this guy? So I said to the guy, "Well, will you take me to the gas station? Not us. Just take me and bring me back." He said, "No, because it's going to benefit him." And he said, "But I'm going to
Why?
tell you what." He said, "I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do." And I said, "What?" He said, "I will take you home to Chicago and drop you off at your house. He's not getting in my car. I will make sure you get home." And I said, "But this is my car. I need to," he said, "I'm not, if you gonna Stay. He said, that's the choice right there. You can either come and I'll take you home.
Ooh.
And so I chose to stay because it was my car. And I said, I don't trust him enough to stay with my car, because if he gets mad, he may tear the
Right.
car
Bust
up.
the windows. Hmm.
Right. So I stayed and
But do you see when you talk about this? Because I'm thinking one of the things, and I'm breaking up
hmm
what you're talking about, but because so many times people who don't have this experience, right, or they can't seem to understand why you would make that decision, and it is something that to me kind of breaks up community in a way, because people would say that was so stupid, why didn't you just get your way home? But when you are in a situation, when you are in a domestic violence situation, when you are in an abusive relationship, a narcissistic relationship, when you are in a relationship where you place values on the things that you have, and not it's not because you wanted to be with him so bad, but you know the after effects. So you have to make a decision in the moment about what could happen if you did blah blah blah. If you
hmm
had been, let him just take you home, you would have been home safe, that would have been it. But you chose to stay with your car. Like people don't understand that.
I
And
know.
when you're in the situation, it's so easy to understand that. Like, I can understand you have to think through 5 steps instead of just saying, yes, take me home. You have to think through, if I do this, then that. There's always consequences. So, um, one of the things that I'm passionate about as we talk with survivors is trying to get other people to understand that it's not just a yes or no all the time. When you have to make a decision, you have to consider one, two, three, four, five different
You
things.
do.
And
And
it would
that's,
seem really easy. Just leave him there and go
well,
home.
yeah,
But you
and
already
go
know when you
home.
come back tomorrow to get your car, the windows will be busted out, the tires will be, you know what I'm
Then I
saying?
got a whole nother thing to worry about.
Yes.
And that's what you were just saying is critical, Cheryl, because when you're in that situation, today we've given name to it. We call it battered women syndrome. We call it abusive relationships. Back then, I still wasn't thinking abuse. I just thinking this is a crazy guy that I have to get away from, right? But what you were saying is when you're trying to think of all of those things, you have to be hyper vigilant in a way that you
All
should.
the time.
Yes, and you should not have to be hyper vigilant in a state of like psychological combat, because you're
Right.
always thinking ahead of this person.
You have to always, that's right.
You see what
That's
I'm saying?
right.
You have to strategize quickly. You got to lie quickly. You got to make sure that he doesn't know that you're leaving, because that causes a whole nother
Yes.
situation.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? So I always try to remember now and to put a language to it, because when we don't put the right language on it, we're going to do the same thing that I did when I was younger, because we weren't talking about these issues back then. Nowadays, we got social media, we got the women's movement, and we have domestic violence advocates and all of those types of things. If you had told me then that I was in a abusive relationship, I would have thought, no, he's an idiot, and I gotta go.
Right. Right.
But this ain't abusive because he ain't getting away with nothing. He thinks he
Right.
is, and I
Right.
allow him to think that. Okay. So of course, when I left, he had his crying spells and all of that, and getting upset about things when he found out I was seeing somebody else and all of that. But it, I just don't, his situation, I don't mind talking about it. I don't like to talk too much about him because, the language in domestic violence is empower yourself, empower yourself. I
Right.
would like to take it beyond that to self-defense. You have to understand how self-defense works, right? You
Yeah.
got.
And I want to, I know we're going to continue this conversation, but first of all, I want to commend you for um, the grace that you have shown even after the fact. But more importantly, I'm glad that you're still here, right? Because so many other situations ended and they really did
Mhm,
end.
mhm, mhm,
Okay, so there's a reason why. Number one, you survived. We all know that God has his hand on
mhm,
everything.
mhm,
But more importantly, because we have been through this and because we have experience what we've experienced, and because now we know there's different terminology now, we've, like you said, life has progressed, so there's terms for different things, there's things in place for domestic violence survivors and things like that. But even more important than that, because there's a lot of things in place but people don't know about it until you talk
mhm,
about it.
mhm.
So I want to applaud you just for sharing. I can share my story all day, but my little sphere of influence is different than yours. So the
Exactly.
more we
Right.
talk about it, the more people can
Mhm,
understand, the more people can feel that they're not alone, because it is a private hell. You don't always share what you're dealing with when you're going through it. And part of the reason why I would think that even people gave him information about you is because they didn't know, and maybe because they weren't educated on what it really was, if that makes sense.
and
So
they
it's really
probably did
important
know.
now. Yeah, it's there are people who did know,
Mhm,
but I'm saying there are people that it's so hard to um, gauge what a person's knowledge of a thing is. If I don't know what domestic violence is, just like I didn't when I was younger and dealing with it, like we talked about earlier, we're athletes, we're tomboys, we fought boys or whatever, it wasn't no big deal. So this is just another boy that's stupid. We'll say that in our head, and
yeah.
we're not thinking. But like you said, after everything you have been through, you sat on that plane and you felt the weight go away. So there really was a weight attached to that, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Somebody asked a question. They said, what do you say to women who feel they don't have options through which to think, or the women that are so battered that strategy never occurs to them?
And that's the hard part, because when we talking about strategy, you have to understand that women who are abused, not only are they psychologically battered, but a whole lot of them are physically battered. And one thing, let me deal with the physically battered ones first, because a lot of times men, when they beat, they tend to hit in the head area where those bruises don't show. But these women end up having TBIs, traumatic brain injuries. So when
Yeah.
it comes, that affects their executive functioning part of the brain, right? So they're no longer able to strategize. That's
Yeah.
one way. The other part is when that psychological um, issue has played such havoc on a person that they no longer feel like they can exercise any kind of strategy, right? So
Yeah.
those are two really important areas. So what do they do? This is when they have to. It's almost like they have to reach out to somebody
Yeah.
else. They
I
have
just,
to, because
go ahead.
somebody's going to help hold them up.
Yeah.
Even if it's not a family member or a friend, it's going to be an organization. But
Well, so
somebody's
you have to understand that it doesn't, however mild you think that situation is, it is heavy enough that you have to still talk to somebody.
yes.
I have a friend who deals in trauma therapy as well, and she talks about how dealing with a narcissist, and this is psychological abuse, actually creates holes in your brain,
Mm-hmm.
like a person who has had multiple concussions or multiple head
Mm-hmm.
injuries. They're literal holes
Mm-hmm.
that are in your brain from the psychological abuse. So it's not anything to play with. When you think about
Yes.
even being in a psychologically abusive relationship, most people see the bruises on a person that's been physically abused and they can kind of, okay, yeah, those things healed up. But the things that happen when you are psychologically or mentally abused cause a different type of damage. So you think
And
about brain fog, you think about forgetfulness, you
yes.
think about mood swings and things like that. Those don't just come because you just woke up one morning and whatever. Sometimes it comes from being psychologically or mentally
Mm-hmm.
abused, and you have no
Mm-hmm.
idea that that's really happening until you get away from it, and now you can't,
Yes.
now it's kind of like this place where you need to get help, and it's really okay to ask for help. I think
It
that that's,
is.
the
It's
other thing.
essential. It's essential. I didn't know that I was experiencing some symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder until years later.
Yeah.
Okay. But the good news, even about that, is, it can change the brain. The trauma and the violence can change the way the brain is structured. But the good news is, through neuroplasticity, we can get a lot of that back. And we used to didn't know about that. We used to think that once your brain has a certain level of cell loss and things like that, you can't get it back. But over the research and over the years, we found that neuroplasticity exists. It takes a while, but if you know that you're dealing with some issues, you can work with somebody who studies it and knows how to treat it, and you can actually find your way back to a.
So tell me about that. Tell me about that. How does that
So
work? How is that something that we ask for? Is that something that our therapist would need to recommend? How do we get to that
the
neuroplasticity? Is that what it's called?
neuroplasticity, you can actually see it too, like on a brain scan, and it evades me right now which one. So I can't think if it was an MRI or what, but you can see it on a brain scan. And
So
you
how
will,
do we request that? Do we go to a therapist and request that?
no, you go to your
How do
doctor. You can go to your doctor. So this is the one thing that I do tell people when they're dealing with violence or domestic violence is, go to a doctor and get your pH levels, because you need to find out everything that's going into your body, right? I mean, that's being affected, how your body is being affected. For one thing, when a woman is beaten, um, over and over again, most men who beat also bring home STDs, specifically HIV. A woman who is getting beat is 3 to 6 times more likely to be infected by the HIV virus versus a woman who is not being beaten. So
And
when you
that's
know
because he's
that,
cheating. What?
yes,
Go
he's
with
very,
that. Why
the
is that?
men who beat are also very promiscuous. They're
Okay.
very promiscuous, and they typically don't care. And I've talked to women who, they come up with these with HIV and different things like that, and they said he beat me when he's the one that gave it to me.
Mm.
Okay, so now that we know this, when they come into the ER, and when I would be there to give psychiatric evaluations in the ER, and this was a lot of this was done in Atlanta at all of the hospitals, Fulton, and a whole lot of other ones. When they would come into the hospital, I have to talk to them, these women, about what's going on. They don't want to talk about it because it's embarrassing, or they don't want to talk about it because they are presenting secondary to HIV. In other words, they may come in there and they're 45 years old. They got beat at 20, but it took 25 years for the rupture in their stomach to actually
Okay.
take there. You see what I'm saying? So then
Yes.
when I asked them, have they ever been hit or punched or kicked? Then they said, well, yeah, but that was a long time ago. This doesn't have anything to do with this. More than likely it does.
Yeah.
So, we have to look at that medical issue. And then, like I said, with the neuroplasticity, if you think you are having some issues with that, especially when you know now, like you said, there can be, it can cause that trauma, and everything can cause holes to settle in your brain. You need to go and have it checked out. So go to a physician, get your pH levels checked. They don't check you for HIV.
So
When
what
you
should we? So what should we be looking for? Symptoms. What kind of things? Because okay, and the reason why I'm saying that, there are, for example, right now, I'm at the age where I would be menopausal. So brain fog is a thing, right?
Mhm, mhm,
Forgetfulness is a thing.
mhm.
So what kind of things do we need to pay attention to that might lead us to say this could be blah, blah, blah? Or even if we just have one or two of these things, still
Mhm.
ask just for GP with our physician to have him check those things out.
Okay, one of the things is, have you been in a relationship, or have you been beaten, whether it's in a relationship or not? Have you been a victim of any kind of violence or ongoing violence in your life? So that's one of the big things right there, because that's kind of sets you up for things. The other thing you want to look at in terms of neuroplasticity is you got to think about your, again, that executive functioning. And it occurs in the frontal lobe of your brain. What happens is, how's your organization? Are you able to organize? Are you able to strategize? Are you able to plan? Are you able to follow through on instructions? Okay, those are the things that's, if you answering no to one of those three things, and you have been in a really bad relationship, then you need to get it checked out. Because
And what happens with neuroplasticity?
so what happens
What
is,
happens when,
okay,
what does
I'm
age
going to
do?
give you an example of using infants or babies for 1 second. This is why we tell people, don't yell at babies too much. You yell at them too much, you change their brain structure. And people think that that brain structure can't change, but it can, because every time you learn something new, it increases a little bit more and more, so your brain structure can change, right? So we tell people, don't yell too much at babies and infants, because when they grow up, the only way they're going to listen to somebody is they are if somebody yells at them. This is how this
Would that be
guy.
the same? Would that be the same if? Would that be the same if all you did was talk soft to the child? They don't understand anything louder than that.
No,
Is the
they
reverse
would
true?
understand, but it's not going to affect them in the same way. They will.
Okay.
If you start yelling at them, they'll be like, "Wow, whatever." But if you don't, if you yelling at a child and their brain starts to change, then now you got to work with them again through neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity basically works like this. Once you know that this is what you are dealing with, all right. One of the things you're going to start doing, you have to be, you have a good counselor or somebody who deals with it. I don't really deal with that in that way, but I know a little bit about it. They can start to help you to through exercises. In other words, have people to just talk to you normally and see how you act. See if you're going to respond to that, right? How are you going to do this thing? Let's start them off with very little instructions. Following one instruction, go to the store. Then go to the store, get some garlic, get some oranges, and get some bread. No notes, just go get those 3 items. Now, I know most of us say, "Dag, I'll be forgetting that all the time," because I do too,
Well,
right?
I was just about to say, if you
Yeah,
give me
but
more than three things, I'm out anyway. I've already
I
checked out.
know, I know. But my point is that if they are doing the exercise, they're going to take the extra time to focus on the 3 things that they need.
Okay.
Okay, you want to make sure that if they cannot, you want to help them make more than one follow more than one instruction. Like when you have a child, you might tell the 3-year-old, go in my room and get the hairbrush. That's 2 things. Go in the room, get the hairbrush. They'll come out with it. But if you tell them, go in the room, get my hairbrush, then go in my closet and get my blue shoes, and then get my red purse from the third drawer, they're not going to do it.
Okay.
Okay, so you will have to start working with people like that until they start to build up their ability to focus, to plan, and to organize. So it's not impossible to do. It takes a while, and you have to have that person has to be willing to overcome that. Now, if they have a TBI, traumatic brain injury, that's something totally different. Okay, so that's different.
So neuroplasticity, is this something that is would be considered not covered from our doctor? Would this be part of regular treatment, or this would probably be supplemental to
Yeah.
regular? It's hard to find and all of that.
It's kind of hard to find. Matter of fact, most doctors see if it was commonplace, we know about it.
Right.
Okay,
Okay.
we would know about it, but most of us don't know about it because just like your pH levels, we go to the doctor and they give us pap smears and all of this, and we think we okay. But we don't realize what may be hibernating inside because we don't have pH levels. And if when you get your pH levels done, now we're talking about all of the they test you for every single thing that they have a test for. And if you
So
got
that again, is this um, like a naturopathic method? Would this happen in regular medical treatment? How would
yes,
we
you
get our
can go
pH?
to
Okay.
I've recommended a few people to go and get their pH levels. I've got my pH levels from my regular internalist,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So no, this is not, not, and I'm not putting down anything else, any kind of medicine, holistic medicine and all of that, because I believe that has its place as well. But yes, you can go to your regular doctor. You can go to a nurse practitioner. They might even be able to do your pH levels. They're gonna draw a lot of blood, but they're gonna check you for everything that they have a test for. So if anything
Okay.
is hiding up under there, they're gonna find it. It's just like
That's
when you
good
go,
to know.
you see what I'm saying? So
That's good
that's
to know.
mhm.
That's
Because
good
I
to
think
know.
it's crucial for us to do that. Sometimes women have to do that to give them the motivation to move on to leaving, relationships that they find to be abusive.
Well, there's a level of education that even the nurse practitioner should be following. Have talked a lot about the fact that the police force needs to be educated in terms of how to deal with the person that's been abused and how not to talk to the person
Mhm,
that's being abused in
mhm.
front of the abuser, right? So when they go to the home, instead of having them both there and you ask the wife, do you want him to leave? She's going to probably say, no, don't take him to jail or whatever. Instead of, if you have them separated and you talk to them separately, she would give you a different story and different
That's
feedback about
yes.
that. So
And
there's
that's
a level of
definitely
sensitivity,
ER.
there's a level of education that goes with the physicians and with all of the people in authority who could possibly help the person that's surviving this or help the person that's currently in a domestic violence situation. So there's plenty of education that is needed. So if you have a physician, and I'm going to look this up, neuroplasticity, I've never heard of it before
Mhm,
tonight. So thank you for sharing that. I'm
mhm,
definitely going to do some research about that, but certainly about checking the pH levels, which I never would have thought to check. And again, like you said, I mean, if I went to my OBGYN and my levels were off, they might mention something about that. I never considered that my whole body pH, there was a whole nother, level to
and you
that.
have to ask
So
for
that's
it.
something also research.
You
Exactly.
have
But I'm
you
saying
have to
without this
ask. Yeah.
conversation,
Yeah, yeah.
we wouldn't have known about it because when I think pH levels, I automatically go to gynecological issues.
Mhm,
I'm not
mhm,
necessarily thinking pH balance for my entire body or
mhm.
I don't think that. And so it's important, like I said, it's always important to have a conversation just because when you know better, you do better, right? So for me,
Exactly.
I definitely will follow up on this information and share that because I didn't know anything about it until today. So I appreciate you talking about that. I did want to open the floor just really briefly before we close out and ask anybody that's online right now if you can just drop in the chat any questions that you have for Dr. Tanya. If you have any questions or any questions in general, just wanted to give you a couple minutes to drop those in. People are saying thank you for sharing. So we thank you for sharing. Obviously, we thank God that you've been protected and able to share the story, right? I wanted to ask you while we're waiting for other people to comment. I just wanted to ask you, and I know this has been a while, but now, do you feel like you have any residual from the issue with that person? Well, it's a 3-point question. So, do you have any residual from that issue? Have you been in another relationship that was abusive, maybe not the same type of abuse? And then, what have you done, or did you do any work after either of those relationships to help you with the trauma, and what kind of trauma are you facing, or do you have any at this point?
Yeah.
So that's kind
First,
of a loaded, that's a
yeah.
loaded question, but I have, yeah.
Okay, I'll try to go through it real quick. First, the residual effects. I started seeing them later when I started realizing that it was connected to that, right? And just to give you an idea of it, I would date men, and if they ate a hot dog the way he ate a hot dog, I would let them go. Men who had never shown any kind of
Yeah.
disrespect in any kind of way toward me. I'd be like, that's so and so. I'm not dealing with that, right? So, and I had done that for many, many years. So who knows? I could have kicked a lot of good men away because they just did one thing that he did or said it the way that he said it. So that kind of thing was there, and I never had much fear about anybody else. I never dated anybody that treated me that way. Never. He was the first and the last. But unfortunately, I think he left though that I wouldn't say he, but that experience left something in me that I am very sensitive to detect it. Right. And what was the last part of the question? What kind of work?
Well, did you do, yeah, did you do any therapy for that? When you say you
There,
didn't notice it until later, is that because you went through therapy and you picked up and they were able to identify that, or you just kind of figured out on your own, like, hey,
well,
that's fun.
yeah, that's when my academics came in, right? I don't know.
Okay,
I didn't
okay.
know why. I started looking at women and female circumcision. That's what started getting me
Oh,
into to women's issues academically. So then I went,
okay.
female circumcision, and I started looking at HIV and domestic violence. It never occurred to me still that all of that experience may have led unconsciously to me going into this. I just realized it pretty much when I started writing my dissertation. This kind of seems that I went through this before. That's when I finally said
Yeah.
I was actually in an abusive relationship. So I
Okay.
did, yeah, I did therapy on myself, to believe it or not. I did what I tell my clients to do. I
Yeah.
told my friends about it. A lot of them now will say, I didn't know it was like that because I didn't present it to them that way. You
Yeah.
know,
Somebody just asked, how did you get the courage to leave?
oh, I had four primary motivators. Four. First off, I was God grounded. I knew that I had dominion over this. My parents raised me that way. So he fought with me on my way to church because he did not want me to go to church. He did not want me to pray. But I was just like, he has lost. This is again, he's not, this is not a good guy. I also read books specifically on Black psychology, and I was looking at the Black Panther Party, and I'm reading about Elaine Brown and Angela Davis, and I started saying I'm a Black Panther female warrior too. So I started taking on that thinking. And third, my family. My father routinely taught me and my brothers how to throw hands, right? He said, this is what you do. If somebody does this, you do this, you do that. This is how you all fight. If you all together, you get in a circle, you back each other up, on and on and on. So we had constant exercises in physical combat and psychological combat. Because my father used to say to me all the time, what if some man go upside your head? What you gonna do? You gonna stand there, or what you gonna do? Okay, so my dad was like, "Oh no, 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 no. You gonna learn some self defense in here." And that was the third thing. And the fourth thing was my dreams and my goals. I was thinking, I'm 21 years old. I'm going to live to be 101, so I got 100 years to go. It ain't going
Come
to be
on.
with. I said, so I got to move on, and he was in my way. He was in my way of doing what I needed to do. So I was like, he got to move. So I prayed. I said, if you
Okay.
ain't move this mountain, you give me the strength to climb, because I'm gonna knock him out. And I really tried. I'm gonna be honest with you. I talked to somebody about buying a weapon. And this guy told me, I've been knowing you a long time. I am not going to give you this weapon to do anything that's going to get you in trouble. That's when I said to myself, he's right. If I hurt him, there goes my 100 years. So I got to go. You know what I'm saying? So
That was smart.
yeah, I got to go. So that's when I said, all right, I'm gonna have to start thinking about this. How am I gonna make this move? How am I gonna make these things happen? And of course, like I said, it he was throwing rocks at my car and trying to do all of that, and I was just like, do what you need to do, because I'm out.
Because I'm still leaving. Yep.
The last time I saw him, I can tell you, was June 22nd, 1983. And people would say, well, do you want to see him? I said, no, never would be too soon. Never would be too
Wow.
soon. No, I don't. Why
It's,
do I need to see him?
and now that you are back in that same town, you haven't run into anybody or anything connected to him or nothing like that. So you have no idea where
I
he might be.
I saw a very, very, very close friend of his, and I decided not to go up to him. Um,
Okay. So, okay.
Okay, and he didn't see me, and sometimes I wish I had, because that guy died a couple of years later, and he was cool with me. But I kept thinking, if my perpetrator is around, I don't need that to
Right.
get back to him, right?
Yep.
Because things gonna change. I got away that time because I wanted to leave Chicago anyway. So that wasn't my reason for leaving Chicago. That was my reason for leaving at that time.
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
just like with you, Cheryl, I knew you when he was still calling me on the phone. I knew, all our friends and everything.
Well,
I knew
okay, let's just go there for just a second. For me, I don't know that I knew that story. I don't know that I knew that. All I knew is that you were adamant about not meeting anybody. We would talk about different people, different guys. Nope, nope. Like whatever, he had a mole on the left cheek, whatever it was. It was just like
yeah.
so small, and I would be like, what is happening? I never knew this story.
And
I
a
never
lot
knew
of
all
that,
those years.
yeah, a lot of that is because I had plans, and I didn't want any of them telling me I can't do anything, or we're going to have to change because we need to compromise. I wasn't willing to do that at that time. I didn't get ready to do all of that until I was in my mid 30s. But early on, I was like, nope, 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 because I want to go to school. I want to do this. I never told you all what my dreams were at that time, but I had other plans. And I was like, that's why, but if you know somebody today, I mean,
If I know somebody today, I'm gonna look for myself. I'm gonna say,
for
put your
yourself.
own house to
I heard that.
before you help somebody else.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
somebody
know.
is saying, how long was the relationship and the subsequent stalking? And you may have said that earlier, they might have missed it. But how long was
How
that
long was the
relationship?
relationship, and what else?
And the subsequent stalking.
Um, the relationship totally before I left Chicago was probably right at 2 years. Um, when all of the stalking outside of Chicago, because when I was at Chicago State, he was stalking me. He ended up sexually assaulting me in the parking lot at Chicago State. We call it sexual assault now, but back then we called it rape. Okay.
Rape.
So, right. And that happened a couple of times. And
So stop, because I need to ask you. when this happened, did you think you were going on a date and then it happened, or did he force you in the car and this happened? When you say that
Okay,
this happened?
so yeah, I had to go to the library because I was meeting a tutor there. And he said, "Well, I'll go to the library with you." And I said, "Okay." So we went to the library, and the tutor was a male, and he could see everything because we was behind one of those glass things. So he was tutoring me in accounting, and I'm getting all of this information. And the tutor went to the bathroom, and when he came back, he said, "We need to go ahead and wrap this up." And we did. And he said, "And do me a favor, the next time, if you want further tutoring, you can't bring your boyfriend." And I said, "Oh, T," and said something to this guy. So we go out, we leave to go into the parking lot. I mean, to get in the car. And I'm getting ready to get in the car, and he's like, "No, get in the back seat." And I said, "I'm not riding in the back seat." And then he pushed me in the back seat. And and then he got in the back seat, and it started pulling at my clothes. So we were fighting and everything. And I'm like, "Come on, don't do this. Don't, stop." And I was hoping that somebody in that parking lot, but it was a Saturday morning, so it wasn't a whole lot of people, going back and forth. So after we fought for about a good 10 to 15 minutes, I just gave in because I was tired of fighting, and he was really exerting all of his energy. So, and I couldn't fight against it. I mean, I was losing the fight, even though I was trying to fight back. So that's what happened. And at the time, I thought about reporting it, but then they're going to ask me, because this is when.
You've already been with him, and now we got a whole. It's going. Yeah, I certainly
Yes,
understand that. I
yes.
certainly understand
So
that.
shortly after that, and that was about the second or third time that he had done something like that. So shortly after that, I had already had my ticket to come to to leave to go to
So
California.
now you're not even thinking about the behavior that he's exhibiting. Again, you're looking at that goal and just, okay, this might have happened, but I'm still leaving on Friday or whatever it is. So
Yeah.
you not even it's not even in the same space that
Hmm.
it would have been if you had to stay.
Hmm. And he was causing problems with my family and with my grandparents and all of that. And I was like, I just got to get out of this. And it wasn't, you know, again, like I said, he led me to never thoughts.
What is that?
Never thoughts is, I never thought that I would do something, right?
Gotcha.
So he led me to two primary never thoughts. I never thought of harming or suiciding myself because to get out of this. Never had that thought. Never thought that I was going to be locked into this for the rest of my life. I always had I always thought positively. I thought of it as, okay, this is a bad experience. I hated that he was really my first real boyfriend, because I was like, that. I hate that it happened that way, but it did. And there's nothing else that I could do about it. But when I had those, never thoughts, I said, this is just, I'm not going to, I never thought about it. Matter of fact, later when I started counseling a lot of women, they were telling me that they thought about suicide, and they thought they were stuck for life and those types of things. And I never had those thoughts. And again, I just think that was due to my four primary motivators, because I had some strong people in my corner. And then when you don't have strong people in your corner, you are going to probably fall a little further down, and it may be even harder for you to pick yourself up. But the one thing, you have to
Yeah.
start the ball rolling. And when somebody reaches out to help you, you're going to have to really, take their hand.
Yeah.
You know,
That's a key. And somebody coming to help you doesn't come back to back. you might have somebody that comes to help you, and then it might be another, who knows how many more incidences you'll have to go through for somebody else to just randomly or not come and reach out. So yes, that is key to when you get the help or when you get the offer for help, just take it. Just take it, because those things matter, right? And that could be
They
the
do.
difference between you continuing in that journey
Mm-hmm.
before the next set of hands comes to help. So
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate the fact that you've taken your time tonight to open your story up, to share your story, to be vulnerable. This is so important. These talks are so important, and it's so interesting because at the top of the year, you know, we start out where we have something every month, right? Every fourth Tuesday of the month, the last Tuesday of the month, we have our Let's Talk Tuesdays. And inevitably, when we cut it off, probably mid-year, because we get ready for our conference, people are asking me all the time, when is the next talk? Because they enjoy these. I mean, they enjoy listening to and getting the information from. And so I appreciate the fact that you know, open yourself up for tonight's conversation. I know that we will connect again. I'm waiting for your book to be completed so that we can talk about that. And I wanted to just again I'm going to ask you and give you the floor for just 2 minutes to just share with anyone who might be out here, who might be listening, who is listening to your story, or they're not sure where to go. What words of encouragement do you have for them? What final thoughts do you have to leave with somebody in that situation?
And thank you, Cheryl. And thank you for doing this work, because this needs to be done. So I really, really appreciate that. My last or final thoughts on this: somebody is struggling with this, you already know you need help. If you're here listening, you know that you need help, because people who are not ready to get help, they don't come to platforms like this. So if you are here and you need help, or you know somebody who does need help, then you got to help them reach out. And there's a lot of different organizations, like we talked a little bit about in the beginning, that can help you do that. Personally, if you want to contact me, I think my information is down here, RatcliffBehavioralMed.com. I'm not doing counseling on this, but I am doing coaching with people with trauma and dealing with trauma and with violence, including intimate partner violence. But please just know that you have a right to defend yourself. You have a right to defend yourself. And you need to think about that. There's nothing wrong with self-defense. Now, we've always, especially as Black people, we have been told that we should not defend ourselves. And I think that's one part of this that leaks over into female thinking, is that we don't have that right to take care of ourselves and to defend ourselves, but we do. So you can take that information. I hope that, it encourages you, what we talked about today, encourages you to go further. And again, contact me. If I'll help you at least find somebody that can help you.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Dr. Tanya, for talking to us tonight. I want you to hold on for just a moment. I'm going to just pull you out of the screen for just a second, and then I'll be right back with you, okay? So hang tight. Thank you so
Okay,
much
thank
again.
you. Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thanks. All right, ladies and gentlemen, those of you who were watching tonight, it was a lot of information, and I will say that I will commit to following up on neuroplasticity. I had never heard that term before, so I'm definitely going to find some information out and share it with you all. I'm hoping that you enjoyed tonight's conversation, and I'm also hoping that if you are not already doing so, that you would subscribe to our YouTube channel, that you would stay connected to Another Woman's Story. Someone's asking, are you doing workshops and talks as well as coaching? Please reach out to me. Yes, go ahead and contact me either through any of the social media platforms. Our email address is anotherwomanstory@gmail.com, or you can reach out to any of our platforms and certainly reach out to me and let's have a conversation. I'd love to do something for you. Also, we have so many things lined up for this year. You'll see a few little snippets about some things to come. But if you are available, keep in mind our October Women's Summit is this year, 2026. It's the third Saturday in October, and you'll see some information about that coming up soon. Go ahead and register for that event. You can go to our website. We have plenty of information. Anyone who is listening that is in a situation, if you need help and you want to talk to someone, there is a 24-hour hotline, and that number is 800-799-SAFE. It is throughout the states of the United States, so you can certainly call at any time. You can give them your information if you're calling for a friend that needs help, but there are counselors available live 24 hours a day, so certainly reach out. Hope you enjoyed tonight's podcast. We'll see you next month. Make sure that you tell a friend. Make sure that you share this information. Feel free to reach out if you need help. Dr. Tanya is going to be available as well. And we're going to have some more information about neuroplasticity. I'm really curious to get some additional information. So with that, I wanted to ask you to have a great evening. Love you all. See you next time. Bye-bye.